Okay, hi everybody. We're talking about a new film that just got distributed, but did its film festival circuit last year. It was the official selection for Tribeca Film Festival, and did get released worldwide in February. We're going to talk about Somewhere Quiet, and as you know, and I'm sure Kyle knows, one of my favorite genres is psychological horror. So, of course, when you put these kind of movies on a new release, I'm going to watch them.
That's fair, yeah. And this is a little bit quiet and a little bit psychological and a little bit of horror. So
yeah, we're going to talk about could it be another one of those best psychological horror since Smile.
Ooh. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hey, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Film Cast.
Something quiet, Nick.
Thanks for watching and thanks for finding us. And loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. Hey, another way you can support the show, hit the like and subscribe button. It's right there. And tell your friends about the show as well. It's a little things you can do for us, and it's a big thing for us as well. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about a relatively new movie for us, Somewhere Quiet.
After surviving a traumatic kidnapping, Meg is trying to adjust to a normal life once again. When she goes to stay at her husband's family compound, her version of reality begins to crumble all around her.
With psychological thrillers or psychological horrors, always the component is, am I crazy or is everybody else manipulating me? Mm-hmm. A great one, kind of under the radar, is What Lies Beneath with Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford. It's another great psychological thriller.
We got to cover that one.
So that's another one of these takes of, am I going nuts or is the world going nuts? And that is always kind of the question that gets bounced around with psychological horror. Here we have Jennifer Kim, who, if you've kind of recognized for a lot of other kind of movies, she's been peppered in for supporting roles.
Yeah, she was in one of the Spider-Man films for the MCU, as well as We Need to Talk About Kevin, another movie that we've covered previously on our show.
And she plays Meg, who just recovering from a very traumatic experience of being kidnapped and the ransom not getting actually paid, and she's able to flee and escape, but the kidnappers have never been found. Mm-hmm. So you have somebody who's dealing with the traumatic events of PTSD and trying to circumvent the logistics analysis of what transpired. And probably each doesn't really know who the culprits are.
Yeah.
And here her husband, played by, I think it's Kentucker Alder. I don't really know him. It's a very unique name. I love your name, man.
He was in one of the VHS films, and I think he also worked on with Ty West on my favorite Ty West movie at the time, which was The Sacrament. So he's got some low-budget indie kind of appeal to him, but not somebody I out-and-out recognized. I had to check and rewatch those films to make sure.
Yeah. He plays Scott, and he thinks the best idea, especially coming from old money and maybe having been a trust fund baby, is take her out in the woods and decompress for a while, and as well as being with neighbors with her cousin, played by Maureen Ireland.
Yeah. What are the chances we watch two recent films with Marin Ireland in them where she's tied up to a post in the basement somewhere? That happened twice this year with Eileen.
Check out Eileen.
That's the weird thing, is like, it's not that it happened a bunch of times, but happening twice in a row is quite crazy.
Right. I didn't recognize her until her eyes popped. And I was like, oh, Eileen. Yes. And here you have, which I tell you, triangles of characters. People sometimes call it love triangle. It's not necessarily love triangle, but triangle characters work because everything has to bounce off to everybody's perception. I like writing where people's characters almost leave a stain on other characters. I've mentioned that before. And this kind of has a little bit of everybody's kind of pressurizing and manipulating people, but also all of them manipulating at once. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we get a sense from those three characters that there is kind of a bit of a three-player chess game going on. Yeah. And I would almost even just say Joe, played by Michael Richardson. Actually,
yes, there's a fourth one. Yeah,
son of Liam Neeson and Natasha Richardson. So you might see him noticed in some credits as Michael Neeson and sometimes as Michael Richardson. He's kind of traded stage names. But in this film, he plays Joe. And he's kind of not a character that we get in his head ever. But he's kind of almost like Marin Ireland's character, a bit of a wrench in the system. Yeah. Like there's a complication to the narrative. And I really liked him.
So what motivates psychological thrillers is nobody does what you're supposed to do in real life. Somebody has PTSD, take them to therapy, work on lowering the triggers, let them come to terms, instead of just isolating them again, which happened when you're being kidnapped.
Yeah, why not put them someplace really quiet? Not only that, let's bring them to the compound. If you call your home a compound, you should
Yeah.
never bring someone there to make them calm.
So there's always avenues of characters not doing the right steps and procedures of how you handling the way you handle PTSD, and not to mention you resolve something that's very traumatic. Obviously, it's a kidnapping investigation that's still open,
Yeah.
right? So you want to be in constant communication with anybody who's investigating it. But you have all these components of somebody with PTSD who's trying to resolve their get back to reality and seeing probably clues that maybe he was involved, maybe I'm being kidnapped again. And when you're screaming, I want to go back home, and you're not going back home, it's going to escalate. I guarantee it. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying the writing is correct here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the film is at its best, it reminded me a lot of Speak No Evil, which was a Shudder original film, I believe, a
Oh, my
Norwegian
God,
film,
yeah,
about people
yeah.
that were just trying to get out of a situation, and you're just yelling at them constantly at the TV, please go home.
Right.
You know,
This is why we yell at aliens. Oh my God, don't do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, when the film is at its best, it's doing that. I don't think the screenplay is as strong as Speak No Evil, and in fact, I do think that it kind of falls off a cliff in the last 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It feels like, to me, like screenwriter-director Olivia West-Lloyd just didn't know how to end the movie, and so just wrote the end, and then we're at the end of the movie.
Right.
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 But I do think when it's at its best, it has a very kind of tense stressfulness to it where you want to yell at the characters involved, but you also question them more than you did in Speak No Evil. Because in Speak No Evil, everybody's fairly on the surface with who they are. This film, you kind of question, is Meg okay?
I'm going to talk about the ending. So if you haven't seen it, you want to understand the ending.
Pause now.
Pause now.
Go watch the movie and come back.
When you're trying to have an open translation to the script of what transpired that you still leave in open interpretations, you're going to have problems with a lot of the writing. It's a goal that's hard to do. It is really hard when you have no conclusive answer. They do have some kind of conclusive answer to The Mist when everybody's like, that was the wrong thing to do, and you feel even worse. That's what I was kind of craving for, something like about the Mist ending to this.
Yeah, because even the film starts at its end. It opens with the end of the movie, and then we flash back to see what happens. So, like, we already know kind of where we're heading with her. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt the whole time like,
Well, yeah,
that's
the
obvious
beginning of the
where we're
movie,
heading
yeah.
to that last shot. But then when we get there, it feels like nothing's really resolved. We don't really have answers to the kidnap,
And
and
not
not everything
faulting,
has to
yeah.
get resolved.
Nothing
You know,
has to, right.
Recent films like Anatomy of a Fall have actually, kind of prided themselves on not giving you all the answers, to my frustrations.
There was a great movie with another person with PTSD that didn't want to live out in the woods, Leave No Trace.
Yeah.
It had a great no resolve to it.
Yep. Or even one of our most popular episodes on The Pledge. We're still having arguments with people in our comments section over whether or not we like the kind of open-endedness of that film. So,
Right. And so this is all the wrong things to do with somebody who's dealing with a post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to have a bookending. If you're going to bookend the script, you have to have some kind of like, that was the wrong thing to do or that was the right thing to do. We understand with this character, it was very well written, that this is not really going to get resolved ever. She's going to have to maintain some kind of level of post-traumatic stress to this.
yeah, but that's never really the climax of the film.
Exactly.
And Olivia West-Lloyd, who had done a short film called Dead Mall, she wrote the screenplay and directed it. I'd seen an interesting quote from her that said that she had modeled this as being kind of like what happens after the credits roll for the final girl. Which, as a horror fan, hey, that's cool. I've actually done similar work like that before. I've written some work about like final girl survival. It's an interesting idea, but the thing that makes me question is knowing that was kind of the original model. I feel like we don't really know what happened to the final girl after the credits roll because we're not. It feels like this was the denouement of the climax of a previous film. And I also felt like I was a little frustrated because I found that I don't need to know everything that happened during this kidnapping situation, but I needed to know more than what was given.
Yeah.
I feel like there was some open-endedness there, and you don't have to give me everything spoon-fed, but there should have been more to it. I felt very lost and kind of like something happened. What happened?
Barbarian does a great, there's a room with a bed and a camera.
Yeah,
and
we
your
don't
brain,
have enough answers in Barbarian either, but
but
we
we
don't
know
care.
we know what the hell we kind of fill in
Yeah.
the app.
There's enough there to fill in the blanks. I think that's perfect. Barbarian is a Mad Libs horror film where you can fill in the blanks and be comfortable. I feel like this film doesn't have enough sentences to make that Mad Lib work.
You had to be something if she'd been tied up to somebody who was seeing her, take a rope out of, make a pork ropes, who has a kind of like a hesitation to see rope or something like that. Right. There's a great concept here. I understand the characters are very well flushed, but you have to, the point A's to point B's kind of sour me.
Yep, and there's certain things in that ending, like, I don't need everything answered, but there was too many questions. She had too many questions about the relationship between Scott and Madeline, too many questions about kind of Joe's involvement on the island, in the compound area, too many questions about can she trust her own husband. All of this stuff is just left unresolved. And I think if you had answered even a few of those, it would have held the film close. Because again, going back to Anatomy of a Fall, we have enough answers there where I think you can put your answer into what happened in that film.
Yeah.
I still feel like there's not enough of it here. You know, like we need to have something to cling to as a climax, and I don't think that the film has one.
Right, and I think this is a great. I would say this is a great first step for a first full feature film for her director.
I've seen plenty worse first features, absolutely.
We did one last year where the woman was pregnant, and that was a great.
Oh yeah,
with Kit Harington.
Yes, Rose, baby, something
right, and that was a great launch pad.
Yeah,
but there was something we wanted more from, and I get the sense of that too.
Yeah, because let's not forget. I mean, in the best filmmakers have some films that are kind of feel like work in progress first films.
Yeah.
You know, I love Martin Scorsese. Some of his early stuff does have some clunk to it before he like hits it big. You know, Spielberg did the same thing. So we're not saying that like career's over. It's just let's take what works and take what didn't work here. And I think again, like there's a lot
Just
of stuff
don't take your
works
script
really
out of
well.
the oven when it's still doughy. How about that?
Yeah, this probably needed another pass because I do think the music is pretty good. The music is actually by Ariel Marks. I liked her work in Sanctuary.
I love the
last
acting
year.
performances and everything. I love the direction. I like the editing of the the beginning of the music. All of a sudden, and you get this cut away.
Yep.
But it didn't relieve me to something where all of a sudden that sound resonates throughout the whole movie. This cut of knife or something. I thought that was going to be something kind of a signature sound we get throughout the movie. So there's a lot of things that you could play with, and I think if the script was just a little too doughy coming out of the oven.
Yeah, I would say because I know like working in scripting a lot. That's the thing that I'm always going to be the harshest on is if I don't feel like your story is there. Sure. And I'm also going to always criticize editing. I feel like maybe 5 minutes could have been trimmed out. I know 5 minutes doesn't seem like much, but every film needs some trimming, and I think this movie kind of does lose that momentum when we start to get past the point of not getting answers. That trimmed down might have not been as impactful.
If you kind of like our review and you kind of like psychological horror, the what's the hell's going on, check out Men. I did like that. Yeah.
We got to cover Men, too.
With Alex Arnold directing and one of my favorite actresses right now.
We really got to cover Men and What Lies Beneath. Join us sometime soon for those films, all right? Because I've been thinking about them for a while.
Yeah.
And then let us know your thoughts on Somewhere Quiet down below. Shout it out loud in the comments section. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the film.
And maybe you need a little bit of mysticism into it.
Yeah, and let's talk about the ending like we did with The Pledge. Just, you put a spoiler alert down on there. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, you can find all of my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
Hey, you can find my show, The St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.